Know you've been a good friend.
In the late 1700s, America was a fragile experiment. 13 new states clinging to the Atlantic coast, surrounded by powerful empires. These colonies, recently united by revolution, were still finding their footing in a world dominated by monarchies and ancient traditions. The United States was small, rural, and uncertain of its future. Most people lived in scattered settlements, their lives shaped by the rhythms of the land and the changing seasons. Its army and navy were weak, barely more than a collection of volunteers and hastily built ships. Many doubted it could survive against the threats that loomed on every border, both from within and beyond. This was a republic in a world of monarchies, built on the radical idea that ordinary people could govern themselves. The founding fathers debated fiercely, determined to create a government that balanced freedom with order. Early leaders like Washington and Jefferson faced the daunting task of uniting a diverse, scattered population. They had to inspire trust in a new system, and convince citizens that unity was possible despite deep differences. Most Americans were farmers, living simple lives tied to the land. Their days were filled with hard work, tending crops and livestock, and their hopes rested on the promise of owning and improving their own land. Cities were tiny, little more than bustling towns, and the nation's wealth lay in its soil, forests, and rivers. Natural resources were abundant, but harnessing them required vision and effort. The dream was liberty and the chance to build a better life, not global power. For most, success meant a safe home, a thriving farm, and the freedom to shape their own destinies. The land itself was both a promise and a challenge. Vast, untamed, and difficult to connect. Endless forests, mountains, and rivers separated communities, making travel and trade slow and uncertain. Poor roads and slow communication made forging a national identity tough. News traveled slowly, and it could take weeks for messages to cross even a single state. People often felt more loyalty to their state than to the federal government. Local traditions and rivalries ran deep, and the idea of a single American nation was still new and fragile. The United States was a patchwork of regions, each with its own culture and economy. The North bustled with small towns and industry, while the South relied on plantations and slave labor, and the frontier beckoned with opportunity and danger. Yet, the seeds of greatness were there: a flexible constitution, ambitious people, and a willingness to experiment with new ideas of government and society. There was a spirit of progress, a belief that hard work and innovation could overcome any obstacle. Inventors, pioneers, and dreamers all played their part in shaping the young nation. Americans looked west, seeing endless possibility. The frontier was a symbol of hope, a place where anyone could start anew and test their courage. This optimism and determination would define the American character. Immigrants arrived, drawn by stories of freedom and opportunity, adding new energy and ideas to the growing nation. The world watched skeptically as the young republic took its first steps. Many expected it to fail, to collapse under the weight of its own ideals and divisions. But within its borders, hope and ambition quietly grew. Communities formed, families built new lives, and a sense of shared destiny began to take root. The stage was set for a nation that would not remain small for long. The challenges were immense, but so too was the potential for greatness. The journey from fragile experiment to world power was just beginning. The story of America was unfolding, and its humble beginnings would shape its destiny for generations to come. The 19th century saw America surge westward as the young nation looked beyond its original borders and dreamed of a vast united continent. This movement was fueled by manifest destiny, the powerful belief that it was America's fate, even its duty, to expand from the Atlantic to the Pacific, spreading democracy and opportunity. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 doubled the nation's size overnight, pushing the border all the way to the Rocky Mountains and opening up millions of acres for settlement and exploration. Pioneers driven by hope and the promise of cheap land braved harsh conditions, enduring long journeys, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of danger, to carve out new lives on the frontier. Trails like the Oregon and Santa Fe became legendary highways of both hope and hardship, guiding thousands of families westward in search of a better future. But expansion was not without conflict. War with Mexico brought new lands, adding California and the Southwest to the nation, but also sowed seeds of tension. The discovery of gold in California sparked a rush of fortune seekers from around the world, transforming sleepy settlements into booming towns almost overnight. Yet, as the nation grew, so did its divisions. especially over the question of slavery in these new territories, igniting fierce debates and protests. The issue of whether slavery should expand tore at the nation's fabric, setting North against South and turning neighbors into bitter rivals. By the middle of the century, America stretched from the Atlantic to the Pacific, rich in land, natural resources, and new opportunities for those willing to seize them. The population exploded, new states rapidly joined the Union, and the foundation for America's future power and influence was firmly laid. Yet the very expansion that made America bigger and more prosperous also made it more divided, as old wounds and new conflicts simmered beneath the surface. The greatest test of the nation's unity, civil war, loomed on the horizon, threatening to tear apart everything that had been built. The ideals of liberty and union, which had inspired generations, would soon face their ultimate trial as America prepared to fight for its very soul. Slavery had haunted America since its birth, casting a long shadow over the nation's ideals of liberty and equality. For generations, enslaved African Americans toiled in the fields, their lives shaped by injustice and oppression. This deep injustice divided North and South into rival societies, each with its own economy, culture, and vision for the country's future. As the nation expanded westward, the conflict over whether new states would allow slavery grew fierce, fueling heated debates in Congress and across the land. Compromises failed to bridge the divide, and in 1861, Southern states seceded after Abraham Lincoln's election, fearing the end of their way of life. The Civil War began, America's deadliest conflict, pitting brother against brother and tearing families apart. At first, the war was about preserving the Union, but as the fighting raged on, it also became a fight to end slavery and redefine freedom in America. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 made freedom a central cause, inspiring hope among millions and changing the very meaning of the war. The North's larger population and growing industrial strength proved decisive, supplying troops and resources that the South could not match. After 4 brutal years, the Union triumphed. Slavery was abolished, but the cost was immense. Over 600,000 dead, countless wounded, and the South left in ruins, its society forever changed. Reconstruction brought new challenges, reuniting the fractured nation, rebuilding the devastated South, and protecting the rights of newly freed African Americans. Progress was slow and often violent. White supremacist groups resisted change, and many promises of equality and justice went unfulfilled for decades. Yet, the war settled 2 fundamental questions. The Union was indivisible, and slavery was ended, changing the course of American history forever. America emerged battered but stronger, determined to heal and move forward, ready to embrace a new era of growth and opportunity. The nation's unity and ideals had survived their greatest test, inspiring future generations to strive for a more perfect union. The stage was set for an industrial transformation that would reshape the country's economy and society. A new chapter was about to begin, filled with hope, innovation, and the promise of a brighter future for all Americans. After the Civil War, America transformed into an industrial powerhouse. Natural resources and new inventions fueled rapid growth. Railroads connected the nation, creating a single market. Industrial giants like Carnegie and Rockefeller built vast empires, drawing millions of immigrants seeking opportunity. Cities boomed, but so did poverty and harsh working conditions. Labor unions rose to fight for workers' rights. By 1900, America led the world in industry and wealth. Economic might became the second pillar of national power. America was no longer fragile, it was strong, confident, and ready to look outward. As the 19th century ended, America flexed its new strength globally. The Spanish-American War in 1898 marked a turning point. America defeated Spain and gained overseas territories. The U.S. became an imperial power, sparking debate over its role in the world. President Theodore Roosevelt championed American strength, sending the Great White Fleet around the globe and building the Panama Canal. American businesses expanded abroad, wielding economic influence. The nation's economy and politics were now tied to global affairs. Yet most Americans still preferred to avoid Europe's entanglements. That would change with the outbreak of a devastating war in Europe. America's age of isolation was ending. The world was about to call on American power. A new era of global engagement was at hand. World War I erupted in Europe in 1914, but America stayed neutral at first. Attacks on American ships and the threat of German alliances forced the U.S. into war in 1917. America mobilized quickly, sending troops and supplies that tipped the balance for the Allies. The war ended in 1918, and America emerged as a major military power. President Wilson proposed a League of Nations, but the U.S. retreated into isolation, refusing to join. The nation was powerful, but not yet ready to lead the world. The experience set the stage for future involvement. America's role as a global power was still evolving. Another, even greater conflict would soon demand its leadership. The world would not wait long. The next test would be even more severe. The Great Depression and the rise of dictators in Europe and Asia led to World War II. America tried to stay out but supported the Allies with weapons and supplies. The attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 forced the U.S. into the war. America's factories and soldiers turned the tide in both Europe and the Pacific. By 1945, the U.S. was unmatched in military and economic power. The war ended the Depression and made America the world's wealthiest nation. This time there would be no return to isolation. America was now a global leader. The world looked to the U.S. for stability and hope. A new world order was emerging. After World War II, two superpowers emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union. Their rivalry sparked the Cold War, a global struggle between democracy and communism. Both sides built massive nuclear arsenals, making direct war unthinkable. Instead, they competed in arms, space, and proxy wars in places like Korea and Vietnam. America led the free world, forming alliances like NATO and launching the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. U.S. troops and influence spread worldwide. The Cold War defined America's role as a permanent global power. Crises like the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world to the brink. Ultimately, the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. The Cold War ended, leaving America as the world's only superpower. U.S. decisions now shaped the globe. The nation's influence was unmatched. A new era of American leadership had begun. How did America rise from fragile beginnings to global superpower? Geography gave it vast resources and security from invasion. Capitalism unleashed innovation and built immense wealth. Political ideals, liberty, democracy, individual rights attracted millions and inspired the world. Key moments, expansion, Civil War, World Wars, and the Cold War shaped its destiny. Leaders and ordinary people alike drove progress, fueled by hope and ambition. America's story is one of land, ideas, and people. Its journey was never easy, but always forward. The promise of America became a reality through struggle and vision. The nation's rise is a testament to what determination and belief can achieve.